when I was showing the photographs of the inside of the cargo hold, I see all this graffiti, gang graffiti. Not only is it gang graffiti, but rival gang graffiti, where they've been crossing each other out inside the cargo hold.
Gang graffiti inside the cargo hold of a commercial jetliner? How could rival gang members gain access to the extremely vulnerable area? We'll hear from gang specialist and retired L.A. Sheriff Sergeant Richard Valdemar next on Full Disclosure. Mr. Valdemar is an internationally known expert on gangs and has been a regular law enforcement trainer and instructor for many city, state, and national agencies.
And every gang has two arms. It has a militant, violent, war-making arm. This is the one most people concentrate on. But if you take this arm out, I'll grow another one, because another generation is waiting to step up here.
We asked gang specialist Richard Valdemar to explain the correct concept of Operation Safe Streets.
The first target gang we had was the Compton Barrio Tres, CV3. They don't exist anymore. They exist in other cities. They don't exist in Compton. The Paragons were the second gang we targeted. They don't exist anymore. The Palm and Oak Crips were the next gang we targeted. They don't exist anymore. Now, how do we do that? Well, we did it because we changed the way we operated with gangs. Prior to this, the method that policemen used to target gangs were saturation patrol, they call it, where they flood a troubled area with as many police officers as they can, make as many arrests and FIRs, field interview reports, of anybody who might even look like they might become a gangster. Well, that doesn't work, never has worked, never will work. All that does is turn the community against the police. But that is the method that the Sheriff's Department has fallen back on, and that is the method that LAPD uses, and, you know, they're failed systems.
Failed systems, he said. What caused them to fail? We asked gang specialist Richard Valdemar to explain the correct concept of Operation Safe Streets.
Instead of concentrating on all the gangs in Los Angeles, he picked one gang, the Hickory Street Gang. And first thing he did was gather intelligence. He gathered all the intelligence he could about all the members of Hickory Street Gang. Okay? And then they became his target. And he targeted that gang alone. And whether they were the victims, the suspects, or whatever. If they sniffed paint, or if they're involved in a murder, everything that were involved criminally about that gang, he took on. You're only aiming to make it weaker at first. So what you do is you target this Hickory Street Gang. It gets weaker and weaker because you're putting away their major players, their shooters, their violence-prone people. So if you do this with the gang, it becomes weaker and weaker, and then the surrounding gangs, who are its traditional enemies, will attack them. When they do, they become targets of the OSS because, remember I said they're either as victims or as suspects. Any gang-related incident becomes a case that you would handle. In that way, we had a safe zone, and then it increased and increased and increased until we had a major part of the city under our control. You never give up the first gang, but you never give up any territory that you make safe. It was such a successful program in Compton that Paramount decided that they wanted that program, but the County of Los Angeles wasn't willing to fund another program and send it over to Paramount. What they did was they stole us and sent us to Paramount. So all the intelligence that we had gathered and the fact that we were trying to hold down this area as a safe place was wasted, because now gangs returned to Compton, and now we're ineffective in Paramount or any other city. I just used Paramount for an example that time. So this is what they're doing now. The sheriff is sending his teams out to put out fires all over the county area. Absolutely ineffective. He didn't learn anything from the Operation Safe Streets program. And the people who he put in charge of the Operation Safe Streets program don't know what the program is supposed to do, and so they misuse the tool. It's a wonderful tool, but it's not being used. So suppressive patrol works as a temporary stopgap measure, but in the long run, it turns them against us, and it doesn't work. So you need smart bombs. Smart bombs are intelligence that works, and you give it to the right people who can go to that specific person that's creating the problem, and you take him out, put a case on him, take him to jail, send him to prison for the rest of his life. Right? You don't have to attack the whole city. You just have to attack that guy because he's the violent one. Every gang is made up of individuals. Some are more violent than others. Some are charismatic leaders. Some are followers. Well, if you get the proper intelligence, you can figure out who you need to put away, who's the danger to the community.
Richard Valdemar brought to light frightening evidence that gang members are working in the cargo holds and luggage areas of our international airports.
When I was shown the photographs of the inside of the cargo hold, I see all this graffiti, gang graffiti. Not only is it gang graffiti, but rival gang graffiti, where they've been crossing each other out inside the cargo hold, which is very dangerous. And I mentioned to the reporter, I said, I would not only be afraid that these baboons are handling my luggage and fighting with each other in a luggage compartment, but they're going to bring a gun, because there's rivals and they're gang members. They're going to bring guns, and you're going to liable to have a shooting right there. And she told me, well, they actually did find a loaded gun on the tarmac. So I said, how did a loaded gun get on the tarmac, in the airport? And then I found out that these people don't pass through the metal detectors like we do as passengers. Because they're airline employees, they were going around the system and handling the planes and the luggage, without being checked. And obviously nobody did a background check on them because they would have found this gang history.
We asked Richard Valdemar if he thought there could be a dangerous relationship between gang members and terrorist organizations. Could a Muslim terrorist convince a Hispanic gang to put a bomb on a plane?
If I was a terrorist, that's what I would do. I mean, we have a built-in army, right? And they're willing to do just about anything for the right amount of money or religious loyalty, because there's plenty of people being recruited in our prison system into the Islamic faith.
So even with all the inconveniences and humiliation of the current security measures, are we safe when we board a commercial airliner? Are major airlines doing anything to protect us from dangerous people having access to the vulnerable areas of the commercial aircraft? We asked Richard, does he see an ongoing problem with gang members working in airports?
Yes, there's a major problem with gang members working in the supposedly safe environment of the airport, especially when they're not going through the background that you and I might have to go through just to get on the plane. They're actually handling the plane. And the cargo hold, where if I was going to put a bomb, a cargo hold sounds like a good place I might want to put it. And then the other fact that some of the graffiti was drug-oriented. Okay, so they're using drugs, they're gang members, and they're inside your cargo hold. Somebody ought to be raising red flags. It's a real security problem.